the onset of the pandemic in March of 2020, I was forced to evacuate my way home to Mumbai. In the blink of an eye, this diverse community of friends that I had formed in my first year at the University of Toronto was suddenly strewn all across the world. I felt really disconnected from the world around me in my home in Mumbai. And everywhere I looked, all I heard and saw were numbers and statistics. Thousands of cases, hundreds dead, ICUs bursting at capacity, thousands of tons of oxygen deficit, and many, many more. There was this barrage of information constantly coming at me at all times and from all directions, and yet there were no stories. COVID-19 is talked about as a public health crisis, an economic crisis, and a geopolitical crisis, when at its core, it is a humanitarian crisis. Even though we are experiencing this global commonality at a scale and in a manner that we had never dreamt of in our lifetimes, our inherently unique circumstances define and shape our personal experiences, which can be drastically different from each other's. I needed an avenue where I could engage and learn from these stories and from these people far beyond my social circle and share them with a larger audience. Because only when we did that could we truly empathize with one another and realize that we're all in this together. We might be in different boats, but we're all in the same story. It was exactly this realization that became the name of the podcast that I co-founded with two of my dearest friends at the University of Toronto, Abhay Sachal and Eli Meadow, in the summer of 2020. Different boats, same storm. Kindling empathy amidst a global pandemic is a video podcast where we engage in candid, insightful, and thought-provoking conversations with people from all walks of life. Our guests talk about the innovations and adaptations this pandemic has brought forth in their lives, what brings them joy in these uncertain times, and what their light is at the end of this tunnel. The foundation stone of Different Boat, Same Storm was that we strongly believe that empathy must be our guiding light as we navigate life through this pandemic and beyond. I strongly believe that empathy must be at the core of any and all of our responses to COVID-19. The question then is, how do we really foster empathy? I believe what we all need is catharsis. People are so fragmented, distraught, and disconnected in these times that it is painfully easy to feel like we're undergoing all of this in isolation and in a vacuum. However, only when we truly look around can we realize that no matter how comfortable, cushy, and pleasurable somebody's life might seem to be, we're all dealing with our own share of problems, in our own boats, so to say. Only then can we be kinder towards one another and be more appreciative of the silver linings in our own lives. Hearing and listening to people's narratives that are similar to or different from ours is the best way that we can heal and empathize with one another. Because stories are such a primal human need and a human way of sharing with and learning from each other. That is exactly what we strive to do at DBSS. Over the span of 25 episodes and 2 seasons, we've spoken to people truly from all walks of life. Poets, filmmakers, life coaches, entrepreneurs, social policy makers, youth change makers, community activists, adventurers, doctors, and many, many more. Here are just a few choice examples. Take Ryan Pyle, a U of T alumnus who studied global politics, played varsity basketball, and then one day decided to head to China, buy a camera, and realize that this is what he wanted to do with all his life. Ryan is, as of today, an adventurer by profession, making television shows for Discovery, BBC Earth, and many others. As I was fleeing my way home to Mumbai, Ryan was shooting in rural Ethiopia and managed to get onto the last flight to the last country that was accepting outsiders at the time, Turkey. In doing so, however, he was stuck in a foreign country in a hotel room with no friends or family or acquaintances for 6 months. For a man whose life was literally dictated by traveling, one can imagine how undeniably hard this must have been when you cannot, well, travel. Ryan decided instead to create content from the confines of his hotel room in Istanbul and continue to interact and engage with his audience and share his life with them. Another example is Ankita Mishra, an aspiring doctor, 22 years old from Mumbai, India, who was unable to do the one thing that she wants to dedicate her life to, saving people's lives, because she was stuck at home taking medical school, her final year, amidst a nationwide lockdown. Being a talented singer, however, Ankita decided to harness her musical capabilities and founded Project 20, wherein she raised funds to provide personal protective equipment, or PPE, for frontline workers by singing songs and requests with her college band. Ankita and her friends raised nearly $2,000 in the process, also singing their way to accommodation by Priyanka Chopra herself. And there are many, many people and many, many stories like that. Each of our guests have been dealt a harsh blow by this pandemic, constrained in their own ways, as have we all. And yet, they've been able to make the most of the cards that they've been dealt with because of their willingness to adopt and adapt to the world around them. The experiences that I was exposed to by engaging in these conversations, I could have never fathomed from just being at my home in Mumbai or my dorm room at U of T. Each of these experiences had value, and we wanted to showcase and celebrate them all, not in a superficial, tokenistic fashion, but rather in a manner that was passionately curious. And that really is the key. Empathy cannot ever stem from tokenistically collecting stories. It is only when we look at the world around us with this passionate curiosity and an unquenchable thirst to listen and learn can we kindle empathy. It is only when we actively seek to engage with the world around us, the people in it, and their life experiences that shape their ideas, thoughts, and beliefs, can we kindle empathy. Another worthy question to ask here then is, what makes a bunch of naive university students on a Zoom call fit for what seems like a really crucial responsibility? It is exactly that passionate curiosity and thirst for learning, which we are best equipped to provide. As students at a place as diverse and global as the University of Toronto, we're in this microcosm of diversity while trying to discover our individuality in the real world. We have the opportunity to be a bridge between these two worlds, which are often starkly disconnected from each other. More so at a place where all this diversity of thoughts, beliefs, and lifestyles is actively encouraged to interact and engage with each other, empathy is bound to form to truly appreciate its beauty. All we want to do, and aspire that people do as well, is learn with all their heart and soul. Speaking of learning, it is fascinating how certain unheard of words and phrases have now just become a part of our common parlance. Never did I think that the word quarantine would have any meaning to me, yet here we are. Never did I think that TikTok would mean anything more than just a sound a clock makes, and yet here we are. Perhaps most importantly, the phrase that I'm most intrigued by is going back to normal. The discourse all around us makes it seem like we're all teeming to go back to this seemingly elusive normal from back in the day. Are we though? Or rather, should we though? Don't get me wrong, I can't wait for the day where I can finally see my friends and family, some and most of whom I haven't seen in a year and a half now, where I can freely travel around the world, both without any qualms. However, there has to be something more to that What about a world before was truly normal? Traveling 2 hours across town for a 5-minute presentation. Meetings that could have definitely been emails. Not washing our hands regularly. The 5-second rule. Not taking mental health seriously. Not being willing to take a step back and rest when we clearly are not feeling up to it and are not feeling well just because of the fear of being reprimanded or the fear of missing out or the fear of being called lazy. Unabashedly looking past glaring discrimination and inequalities staring us in the face. Makes you wonder, does it not? I can't stop thinking about it myself. I believe that the world around us has changed in manners that it can never be the same again. As undeniably hard as these times have been and continue to be on all of us in our own ways. Different boats, remember? I think we can all agree that we have learned invaluable lessons about the ways that we should act towards ourselves and in the ways that we should act towards others. Taking out time for ourselves and actively seeking out our hobbies and passions. Checking in on each other and making sure that we're okay. Realizing that it's okay to not be okay and actively taking steps to rectify that. Be more kind to and understanding of each other. I can keep going on because the list really is endless. It is concerning that it took the world around us to come to a grinding halt for these realizations to hit us, but maybe, just maybe, this is what we needed to bring about a change of such magnitude. At this juncture, then, I believe we have 2 options. The first option is to constantly hope that things go back to the way they were, and as soon as they do, default to them, for better or for worse. I think we can all agree that going back is the easy option, if it is even possible. Deviously enticing too, might I add. There is, however, the second option. The second option entails thinking reflexively about why we do what we do, fixing what we did not even realize was broken. And instead of lamenting the loss of what was, actively seeking out opportunities for what could be. Finding joy in the things that we can do rather than hinging our joy on activities and things that circumstances clearly do not permit us, in my opinion, is a healthier way to go about this pandemic. If an adventurer whose life is literally dictated by travel can create content from the confines of his hotel room and find joy, I think we all can. If an aspiring doctor is unable to save lives in a hospital ward and yet continues to save lives by singing because that is her true passion as well, and find joy, I think we all can. The idea is not to be toxically positive and believe that the world around us is perfect and devoid of chaos, because let me tell you that it isn't. In fact, it is acknowledging the fact that the world will never be perfect. We have to acknowledge its flaws and realize that it will never be perfect, which is why we need to actively seek those silver linings, not despite the chaos, but rather because of the chaos. I have personally grown, developed, and matured immensely in these times, and so have we all, in our own ways. Going back discredits the hard-earned learnings of these times. There is no going back. There is only moving forward, and therein lies an opportunity for us to build the world that we aspire to live in, because the world order is shaken right now. Therein lies a chance for us to retain the good parts of the pre-pandemic world and complement that with the learnings of these times. Seldom do we get such an opportunity, and I am not throwing away my shot. Again, easier said than done though, isn't it? Here are my 2 cents on how we can make a step in the positive direction. the notion of different boat, same storm makes sense far above and beyond the pandemic. In every aspect of our lives, climate change, global health, mental health, politics, all of them and more, we find ourselves in our own different boats, regardless of what the storm might be. And I can assure you, there always have been, always are, and always will be storms. If only we adopt this outlook and look at the world from a lens that is strongly embedded with empathy, understanding, kindness, and learning, be they at an ordinary, personal, everyday level, or at a grander, global scale, the world around us would be a much better place to live in. Even though it was this pandemic that got me to embark upon this journey, I don't think I can ever disembark now. After having done 25 episodes over 2 seasons and nearly 2 years now, the world around us looks very different from how it looked like when we started, and yet eerily similar in many, many ways. Even a few months back, we were hoping, and it looked like, the world was finally opening up again, and we would have an opportunity to step out into the real world and engage and interact with our audience and our guests at DBSS in a more engaging fashion, perhaps even through the medium of film. However, Omicron has yet again thrown a spanner in those works. However, as has been every single thing that we do in these times, we shall reevaluate and reassess the possibilities that we have at our disposal and continue to do the work that we do at DBSS in some fashion or the other. That I can reassure you. As we seek to rebuild the world around us from the aftermath of this pandemic, whenever that after is, I sincerely hope that we ponder reflexively over this collective memory that we are all building, living, breathing, and creating every single living moment of our lives right now. We seek to build a world that is built on the foundations of empathy and understanding, and a world that values its most prized assets, its people. Thank you so much.